Hi, welcome to my channel about mystical stories, Mystic Dawn, creepy legends. I wish you an enjoyable listening experience. The minibus rumbled along the snow-covered road, flurries dancing in the headlights' glow, as we made our way deeper into the Maine wilderness. Excitement bubbled within me, tinged with a hint of apprehension at the thought of spending a week in such a remote location. Beside me, Jennifer leaned forward, her breath fogging up the window as she peered out into the darkness. "Can you believe we're finally here?" she exclaimed, her voice tinged with excitement. I nodded, unable to suppress a grin. It's going to be an adventure, that's for sure. As the minibus rounded a bend, the vacation home came into view, nestled amidst a blanket of snow-covered trees. It looked cozy and inviting, yet there was an undeniable sense of isolation that sent a shiver down my spine. "We're really out in the middle of nowhere, aren't we?" Michael remarked from the back of the minibus, his tone equal parts awe and trepidation. "Yeah, but that's the beauty of it," Alex chimed in, his voice filled with enthusiasm. "No distractions, just us and nature." The minibus came to a stop, and we eagerly piled out, the crisp winter air invigorating, as we unloaded our bags and supplies. "Let's get settled in," Sarah suggested, her breath forming clouds in the chilly air. "Can't wait to see what adventures await us." With laughter and chatter filling the air, we made our way into the vacation home, our spirits high as we prepared to embark on our winter getaway. Little did we know, the true adventure was only just beginning. The vacation home welcomed us with warmth as we stepped inside, the crackling fire in the stone hearth casting flickering shadows across the cozy living room. Outside, the snow continued to fall gently, blanketing the world in a serene white silence. It was a scene straight out of a winter wonderland. "Wow, this place is amazing," exclaimed Emily, her eyes wide with wonder as she took in the rustic charm of the cabin. "Totally worth the long drive," Daniel agreed, nodding in approval as he dropped his bag by the door. I couldn't help but smile at the sight of my friends, their excitement contagious as we explored our temporary home for the week. "We should divvy up the rooms," suggested Michael, already heading up the staircase to the loft above. I called dibs on the room with the fireplace. Laughter filled the air as we playfully argued over who would get the best room, finally settling into our respective spaces with a sense of contentment. As the evening wore on, we gathered around the crackling fire, the scent of wood smoke mingling with the aroma of simmering stew on the stove. Conversation flowed freely as we shared stories and made plans for the days ahead. "I can't wait to hit the slopes tomorrow," remarked Alex, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. "And don't forget about the ice skating rink nearby," Sarah added, a mischievous grin tugging at her lips. "I heard it's absolutely magical at night." As the hours slipped by, the warmth of the fire and the comfort of good company lulled us into a sense of relaxation. Outside, the world was silent save for the occasional whisper of the wind through the trees. "This is exactly what I needed," Jennifer sighed contentedly, leaning back in her chair with a smile. Little did we know, the tranquility of our evening would soon be shattered by the strange and unsettling events that awaited us in the days to come. But for now, we basked in the simple joy of being together, grateful for the respite from the chaos of the outside world. The days passed in a blur of laughter and adventure as we embraced the winter wonderland surrounding our secluded vacation home. Yet, beneath the surface, an undercurrent of unease began to simmer as strange occurrences unfolded around us. It started innocently enough. Flicker of the lights, a sudden chill in the air. We brushed it off as quirks of an old cabin in the woods. But as the days wore on, the incidents grew more frequent and unsettling. "I could have sworn I heard footsteps outside last night," Emily confided one morning over breakfast, her brow furrowed with concern. "Me too," Sarah chimed in, nodding in agreement. "And I thought I saw someone standing at the edge of the tree line." shiver ran down my spine as I glanced out the window, half expecting to catch a glimpse of some mysterious figure lurking in the shadows. It's probably just our imaginations getting the best of us, Michael reassured, though the unease in his voice betrayed his words. But try as we might to rationalize away the strange occurrences, they only seemed to escalate. The power would cut out without warning, leaving us in darkness until the generator sputtered to life on its last drops of fuel. The tires of our minibus were discovered to be chewed through, leaving us stranded in this remote location with no means of escape. "This is getting ridiculous," Daniel muttered, frustration evident in his voice as he surveyed the damage to the vehicle. "And creepy," Jennifer added, her eyes darting nervously to the darkened windows. As night fell and the shadows lengthened, a palpable sense of fear settled over our group. We huddled together in the dim glow of the fire, casting wary glances at the darkness beyond the cabin walls. "What do you think is out there?" Emily whispered, her voice barely above a murmur. I shook my head, unable to shake the feeling of dread that coiled in the pit of my stomach. "I don't know, but whatever it is, I have a feeling we're about to find out." The night was cold and unforgiving, the air heavy with the weight of impending dread. We had gathered around the warmth of the fire, seeking solace in each other's company as the darkness pressed in around us. But as the hours slipped by, a sense of unease settled over our group like a suffocating blanket. "I can't shake this feeling that something's out there," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible above the crackling flames. "We've been over this 100 times, Daniel replied, though the edge of uncertainty in his tone betrayed his bravado. "There's nothing but trees and snow for miles." But even as he spoke, a blood-curdling scream shattered the stillness, echoing through the night like a harbinger of doom. We sprang to our feet, hearts pounding as we exchanged panicked glances. "What was that?" Jennifer cried, her voice trembling with fear. Before anyone could respond, another scream pierced the air, this time closer, more desperate. Without hesitation, we raced to the source of the sound, dread twisting in our stomachs. And there, lying motionless in the snow, was Emily. Her eyes wide with terror, her body battered and broken. "Oh, God, no," Michael whispered, his voice choked with emotion as he knelt beside her. Panic erupted around us as we struggled to comprehend the magnitude of what had just happened. Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks as she clung to Emily's lifeless form, unable to accept the reality of her friend's death. "We have to get help," I said, my voice hollow with shock as I surveyed the scene before us. "We can't stay here." But even as the words left my lips, I knew deep down that there was no escaping the nightmare that had descended upon us. And with Emily's death, a chilling realization settled over our group like a death shroud. In this remote wilderness, surrounded by darkness and uncertainty, we were utterly alone. The aftermath of Emily's death cast a dark shadow over our group, shattering the fragile illusion of safety we had clung to. Fear permeated every corner of the cabin, twisting our thoughts and driving a wedge between us. "I can't believe she's gone," Sarah whispered, her voice choked with grief as she stared into the flickering flames. "It's like a nightmare." "We need to stay strong," Michael replied, his jaw set in determination as he surveyed the somber faces around him. "We'll get through this together." But despite his words, the atmosphere in the cabin grew increasingly tense as suspicion and paranoia took hold. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside, sent us spiraling into a frenzy of fear. "We have to do something," Daniel urged, his voice frantic with desperation. "We can't just sit here waiting to die." His words sparked a heated debate among us as we grappled with the harsh reality of our situation. Accusations flew, fingers pointed, trust shattered like fragile glass. In the blink of an eye, the camaraderie that had once bound us together dissolved into bitter resentment and suspicion. "We're turning on each other," Jennifer murmured, her eyes filled with sorrow as she watched the chaos unfold around her. But amidst the turmoil, A glimmer of hope emerged as we clung to the belief that rescue would come. We rationed our dwindling supplies, barricaded the doors, and kept watch through the long, sleepless nights. Yet, with each passing day, the darkness closed in around us, suffocating us with its oppressive weight. And as the realization dawned that we were utterly alone in this unforgiving wilderness, the descent into chaos became inevitable. The night hung heavy around the cabin, the darkness pressing in like a suffocating blanket as we huddled together in the dim glow of the fire. Outside, the wind howled mournfully through the trees, carrying with it an ominous sense of foreboding. "I can't shake the feeling that we're being watched," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible above the sound of the wind. "We're just on edge after everything that's happened," Michael replied, though the uncertainty in his tone betrayed his words. But even as he spoke, a sudden chill swept through the room, sending shivers down our spines. And then, through the darkness, we saw them, two glowing red eyes, burning like hot coals in the night. "What the hell is that?" Daniel exclaimed, his voice trembling with fear as he pointed towards the window. A wave of panic swept through our group as we scrambled to make sense of the terrifying sight before us. With trembling hands, I reached for the flashlight, casting its feeble beam out into the night. And there, illuminated in the pale light, was a creature unlike anything we had ever seen. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent intensity as it stared back at us, its form obscured by the darkness. "It's some kind of animal, right?" Jennifer ventured, her voice laced with uncertainty. But before anyone could respond, a deafening roar echoed through the night, shaking the very foundations of the cabin. We recoiled in terror, the sound sending a chill down our spines. "We need to get out of here," Alex urged, his voice frantic with fear as he made for the door. But as he reached for the handle, a sudden movement outside caught his eye. And then, with a blood-curdling scream, he was ripped away into the darkness, leaving nothing but the echo of his terrified cries behind. We stood frozen in shock, unable to comprehend the horror that had just unfolded before our eyes. And as the reality of our situation sank in, we knew that our fight for survival had only just begun. The night air hung heavy with an oppressive silence, broken only by the occasional creak of the cabin and the distant howl of the wind. Inside, we huddled together, our nerves frayed and our hearts heavy with dread after witnessing the horrifying sight of Alex being dragged into the darkness. "What the hell was that thing?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling with fear as she clung to Jennifer's arm. "I don't know," Jennifer replied, her eyes wide with terror. "But we have to get out of here before it comes back." Her words hung in the air like a dark omen as we exchanged fearful glances, the reality of our situation sinking in with each passing moment. But before we could formulate a plan, a new sound pierced the silence. Gut-wrenching scream echoing through the night. We sprang to our feet, our hearts pounding in our chests as we rushed to investigate the source of the sound. And there, just outside the cabin, we found him, Daniel, lying motionless in the snow, his body torn and bloody beyond recognition. "Oh God," Michael whispered, his voice choked with horror as he knelt beside his friend's lifeless form. "Not Daniel too." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she stared down at the gruesome sight before her, unable to comprehend the sheer brutality of what had just occurred. "We have to do something," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "We can't just stand here and wait to die." But even as she spoke, a sense of futility washed over us, the enormity of our predicament weighing heavily on our shoulders. With each passing moment, the darkness closed in around us, suffocating us with its oppressive weight. "We need to get help," Michael said, his voice filled with determination as he surveyed the grim scene before him. "We can't stay here any longer." And with that, we knew that our only hope lay in escaping the nightmare that had engulfed us. But as we prepared to venture out into the unforgiving wilderness, we knew that the odds of survival were slim. And with each step we took, we braced ourselves for whatever horrors awaited us in the darkness beyond. With each passing hour, The sense of impending doom grew more palpable, driving us to the brink of desperation as we grappled with the harsh reality of our situation. We knew that if we were to have any chance of survival, we would need to band together and confront the horrors that lurked in the darkness. "We can't just sit here and wait to die," Sarah declared, her voice filled with determination as she addressed the group. "We need to fight back." Her words sparked a fire within us, igniting a fierce determination to defy the odds and overcome the terrors that threatened to consume us. With grim resolve, we armed ourselves with whatever makeshift weapons we could find, steeling ourselves for the battle that lay ahead. "We stick together, no matter what," Michael proclaimed, his voice firm as he looked each of us in the eye. "We're stronger together than we are alone." With a shared sense of purpose, we ventured out into the darkness, our hearts pounding in our chests as we braved the unknown. Every sound, every shadow, sent a jolt of fear coursing through our veins, but we refused to let it paralyze us. "We can do this," Jennifer whispered, her voice filled with quiet determination as she clutched her weapon tightly in her trembling hands. And so, we pressed on, navigating the treacherous terrain with a mixture of fear and determination. With each step we took, the darkness seemed to close in around us, threatening to swallow us whole. But despite the overwhelming odds stacked against us, we refused to back down. We fought tooth and nail, pushing back against the horrors that sought to destroy us with every ounce of strength we possessed. "We're not going down without a fight," Alex declared, his voice filled with defiance as he faced the darkness head-on. And as the night wore on and the battle raged on, we clung to the hope that somehow, against all odds, we would emerge victorious. For in the face of unspeakable terror, the human spirit proved to be a force more powerful than any darkness that dared to challenge it. The night stretched on, relentless in its assault on our sanity as we fought tooth and nail against the unseen adversary that stalked us through the darkness. With each passing moment, the tension in the air grew thicker, suffocating us with its oppressive weight. "We can't keep going like this," Jennifer gasped, her voice strained with exhaustion as she leaned against a tree for support. "We need to find a way out of here." Her words hung in the air like a desperate plea, echoing the thoughts that plagued each of us as we struggled to make sense of the chaos that surrounded us. "We're not giving up," Michael declared, his voice ringing out with a fierce determination that belied the fear in his eyes. "Not now, not ever." With renewed resolve, we pressed on, driven by a shared determination to survive against all odds. Every step was a battle, every sound a potential threat. But still, we pushed forward, refusing to surrender to the darkness that threatened to consume us. "We're getting close," Daniel muttered, his voice low with determination as he led the way through the dense undergrowth. "I can feel it." But even as hope flickered within us, a sudden movement in the shadows brought us to a halt, our hearts pounding in our chests as we braced ourselves for whatever horrors awaited us. "It's here," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible above the pounding of our hearts as she raised her weapon, ready to defend herself against whatever lurked in the darkness. And then, with a deafening roar, it emerged from the shadows. Towering monstrosity, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light as it loomed over us, ready to strike. "We stand together," Michael shouted, his voice ringing out with defiance as he faced the creature head-on. "For Emily, for Daniel, for all of us." With a primal roar, we charged forward, our weapons raised high as we prepared to make our final stand against the darkness that threatened to consume us. And as the battle raged on, we fought with a ferocity born of desperation, refusing to back down until our last breath. For in that moment, we knew that our survival depended on the strength of our will and the power of our resolve. And as we stood united against the darkness, we vowed to fight on, no matter the cost. Until the bitter end, as dawn broke over the horizon, casting its golden light upon the desolate landscape, we stood amidst the aftermath of our harrowing battle, battered and bruised but alive. The creature that had haunted our nightmares lay defeated at our feet, its monstrous form now nothing more than a lifeless husk. "We did it," Jennifer breathed, her voice filled with a mixture of relief and disbelief as she surveyed the scene before her. "Yeah, we did," Michael replied, his gaze lingering on the fallen creature with a sense of grim satisfaction. "But at what cost?" The weight of our losses hung heavy in the air as we gathered together, our hearts heavy with grief for those we had lost along the way. Emily, Daniel, Alex, and so many others who had fallen victim to the darkness that had threatened to consume us all. "We'll never forget them," Sarah murmured, her voice choked with emotion as she placed a hand on Jennifer's shoulder. "They gave everything so that we could survive." With a heavy heart, we set about the grim task of laying our fallen comrades to rest, their memories forever etched into the fabric of our souls. And as we stood together, united in our grief and our determination to honor their memory, a sense of closure washed over us like a gentle wave. "There are no miracles here," Michael said, his voice tinged with sorrow as he surveyed the scene before him. "Only closure." And with those words, we turned our backs on the darkness that had threatened to consume us, ready to face whatever trials lay ahead with courage and resilience. For in the end, it was not miracles that saved us, but the strength of our bonds and the power of our collective will to survive against all odds. And as we set out on the long journey home, we carried with us the memories of those we had lost, their spirits guiding us forward into an uncertain future. But no matter what challenges lay ahead, we knew that as long as we stood together, we would never be truly alone.